So good afternoon and welcome to Boyle Talks Boxing. I'm Lakey and I've got Arv with me and obviously Chris. Hello guys, you all right?
Yeah, guys.
Good, all good. And we're very honoured to have with us Mr. Andy Barraclough, who's an ex-amateur boxer. He's now an MC, and as an MC, he's MC'd at the Great GB Championship on Box Nation, which was a few years ago now, and obviously covered pro shows on Eurosport and the BBC. And when he got his pro license as an MC, you were the youngest in the country. So hello, Andy, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, guys.
Nice to have you on. So we thought it'd be good to catch up with you. Chris has kindly brought you along and said he's got, can have a good chat with you and got some great stories to share with everybody. So I'll hand you over to those guys.
Good morning, guys. I mean, I think we spoke between ourselves once a month, offering something from the amateur side of it. That's why we brought Andy in to chat with us this morning. Andy's a great guy. I'm sure he's got some good stories. Like you say on the introduction, Laker, to MC on Box Nation on the GB Championships is a good one, and I'm going to be interested to find out from him. I can't remember who he actually MC'd, but some of the pros now will be obviously the ones who were amateur then. So it's quite an interesting backdrop, that.
That's fantastic.
How long ago was that, Andy?
So that was I think it was 2016 or 2017. I can tell you who the biggest name on that bill was. Daniel DeBow boxed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, massive.
So, yeah, in more ways than one.
Something. Was Solomon Dacus on there by any chance?
I think he was actually, yeah.
He was
I think he was. Do you know, it's interesting because obviously when you MC at amateur level, locally, the guys that you obviously know them through reputation, but when I did the championships, even though there were more high profile boxers, I probably didn't know them as well, so it was only the names that stood out. So DeBow is obviously quite a nuanced name, so I remember pronouncing it because I think Buncey and Woodall were working that event and they told me it was pronounced Dubois, so I got the pronunciation wrong. So
yeah, it is good, Daniel Dubois, isn't it? It is, isn't it?
Well, I got so much stick for saying that, so I never know which one's right now because
it's Dubois.
Well, Dubois. I got it right then. I got it right.
Daniel Dubois. That's how you pronounce it, not you?
I was right then.
One, isn't it? It's a funny one, that.
He's a funny one.
So take us back then, Andy. How did you get into boxing? What was your introduction to the sport?
Yeah, so my dad runs an amateur boxing club in Scunthorpe, where I'm originally from. And like everyone involved in amateur boxing, I saw, the blood, sweat and tears, the voluntary work he did. He won various community awards for his work, which I know, similar to you, Chris. It's a right old slog, isn't it, in amateur boxing? And of course, I don't get anything back for it. It's just for the love, really. So obviously having a boxing family, all my uncles had boxed as well. I wouldn't say there was pressure, but I suppose I was always going to box at some point. I was around from it since I was in a crawler. My dad's got stories of me being in a baby walker and trying to get into the ring and training and all sorts. But I was never the best. Unfortunately. I always had a go, but it's like many people, isn't it? The problem is with boxing specifically, if you're not winning all the time, people look at you as though you're rubbish. It's not like football where you can go out on a Saturday and lose and no one thinks nothing of it. In boxing, there's so much pressure put on if you win or if you lose. So I had a few fights and then quite a few fights actually, and then my dad had an MC let him down on the day of an event, and so he's running around, can't get anyone. So I said, I think I was 20 at the time. I said, I'll have a go at it. And then just never looked back. Got 3 bookings on that night. The first show I did, 3 people come up to me and said, can I book you for my next event? So just went from there, really.
I mean, I was going to say, Andy, before DMC, and I know you said you had quite a long amateur career. How many fights did you have?
It wasn't that long. I think I had roughly about, 10-ish.
How many seasons?
10-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was probably over maybe it's like 4 or 5 seasons.
Oh, I've got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you was around a while.
That's right. Yeah, I wasn't the most active, so Obviously, you've got boxers who literally just box week in, week out.
Yeah.
I tended to, although I didn't box like a pro, I tended to approach it like a pro, or try and have at least 2 months between each fight.
Some amateurs did do that back in the day. You'd have some box regularly, Chris and Andy, and then you'd have some what just stretched it out over the years and had the odd 1 year,
I think you get kids, and Andy and Harvey will both say the same. You get kids in every gym that are bugging you for a fight, asking you every 2 minutes, when am I fighting next, pulling your arm and wanting to know, aren't they, them? Then there's others that when you say you've got a fight, they're kind of like, oh, you know what I mean?
It frightens them.
You know what I mean? When is it? And start worrying from that moment, don't they?
That's right.
Everybody's different. Everybody's different.
Yeah, and then somewhere in the middle of that, I think it's probably where I sit, where I was just sort of I was training religiously 3-4 times a week, and then just whenever my dad would say we've got a call, then we'd go. But I never turned the fight down. I don't know why. Just if we'd have got more offers, I think we would have probably boxed more. But I was a very awkward weight. I was about, I think, 59, 60 kilos as an adult, and obviously quite tall. I'm about 5'10", 5'11", so it was always difficult to get fights. I think that's the reason. Had I been 65, 66 kilos, I think I would have been a lot more active. That's just the way it goes, I suppose. I didn't want to put any weight on at the time. Yeah, I know. Now I'm about 85, 90 kilos now. But at the time, you're so... And this is another thing about amateur boxing. You're so scared to put weight on because you start to worry about bangers. You're going to start to get tagged. When you've conditioned yourself to fight at 60 kilos, 65 kg is a massive jump. And that's... I would rather have had less fights at 60k than box more frequently at 65, because I got tagged a few times at 60. I certainly wouldn't have liked it at 65 plus.
Different, innit? It's definitely different, innit?
Yeah,
Who were your heroes growing up in the sport, Andy? Who was your boxing heroes?
Yeah, I always looked at the middleweight division. Obviously I boxed at lighter than that, but I always looked at people like Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn was just phenomenal, and he gets so much stick for his poor, and I say it in inverted commas, footwork. But if you watch his head movement, I've never seen a boxer with better head movement, and I mean that.
A lot like his son, into.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, Nigel Benn. If you look at Nigel Benn from the start, he used to just rush in, didn't he? And then I noticed when he fought against Michael Watson, and Michael Watson beat him, then he changed his tactics and he approached differently in regards of bobbing and weaving and moving his head when the shot came at him and countering. Before that, he used to always try to rush in and knock him out. Sorry. No, it's all right. You carry on.
And to be fair, there's an argument to say that tactic worked for him in the early days, because I'm not suggesting he was fighting bums, but he was obviously fighting people not of the caliber of Watson, Eubank, and he was able to bang them inside 30 seconds inside a round. I'd love to know how many knockouts he'd have inside a minute.
I always say, it's always good. Sometimes good to lose a fight to learn from it.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, he was knocking everybody out until he come against Michael Watson, and he couldn't touch him, and he lost that fight. Then he came back a better fighter. That's when he came back with the head movement and the weaving, and not getting eaten and eating back. And sometimes I always say it's good to lose a fight because you can learn from it and become a better fighter from it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always an interesting division, isn't it? Because there was, if we look at that, just going on to that point, then there's Ben, Eubank, Watson. Who was the other one? There was another one.
Of course, you have McClellan.
Yeah, of course, there's McClellan. Yeah, there was another Brit though. I thought there was another Brit.
Steve Collins. Steve Collins.
Might be Steve Collins. Yeah.
You
look at them, everybody's got a favourite, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I was unusual me because I favoured Eubank. I like Eubank. I liked his style. I liked his boxing ability.
I liked Eubank too. I was probably like you. I loved them both. Like it's like in Messi and Ronaldo. I don't think you have to choose. Sometimes you can appreciate them both.
Yeah, it's a good comparison that actually, because it is like that.
And guys, it's a shame really, because out of them guys, my favourite fighter was Watson, and he ended up getting hurt.
I know.
The better fighter of all of them, I thought.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, he was a bit quiet when he. But in comparison with them, I thought he was the most defensive hit and not get hit sort of thing. But he's quiet, and defensively and skillfully, he was better than both of them. I thought, and you just end up having that bad accident, unlucky, very unlucky. Because the first fight I thought he won against Eubank, and the second fight he was definitely winning, and he got caught, didn't he? And then
it was definitely the most skilled fighter, weren't he, out of all of them?
I think so too.
Definitely.
And yeah, Steve Collins was tough, wasn't he? Tough.
Oh, tough as nails.
Tough as nails. Yeah. I mean, when I look at Nigel Benn, the first thing that always comes to my mind is his first fight with Eubank. And what you were just saying a moment ago, Av, about learning from defeats. Yes. Now, I'm not saying Eubank was a class above him in that fight, but he outboxed him in every aspect. I don't know if you're familiar with the fight, but...
Yes, Cole, 100%.
He just absolutely, from start to finish, he just did a job on him. I mean, there was moments when it was a little bit hairy for Eubank, but you're always going to have that when you've got Ben's power. So I always think of that, and then I think of the process between that fight and the second fight, the very controversial draw, if anyone can remember that.
100%.
There's no way that was a draw.
No.
I have no idea how that was scored a draw. I think, for me, Ben won by about 4 rounds. He was, in my opinion.
Ben did win that fight,
I'll tell you what it was, guys. Again, it's about business and money. They thought, I don't know who, they must have a word with these judges, and they must have come down to thinking, well, if Ben keeps his title and Eubank keeps his title, then everything's all right then. But rather than one loses the title and he's got nothing, keep their titles and they can carry on making big money. Thought to do a lot with promoters, in my opinion.
They were maybe setting up the third fight potentially, but I think
and that as well.
It's an interesting one because, and I go down this route a lot sometimes in my own head, and you think about, is it as intricate and bent as that, where those sort of situations do unfold, and you do sometimes you're left wondering, that's a little bit suspicious. For example, Tyson Fury, very similar situation to what you've just described about keeping the belts. Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder the first time.
First fight.
I know he got put down twice, but there's no way on earth that Wilder has taken 4 rounds of that fight, 4 or 5 rounds, whatever he would have needed. It just hasn't happened.
Totally
he's taken 2 at best, and they're the ones that he puts him down. Again, you're thinking, is that legitimate? Are we comfortable with that as spectators, as participants, as people who work in the industry?
The Wilder one was a bad decision. He definitely didn't win the fight. Fury won probably by about 2 rounds clean on that fight. You know what I mean? And clean. And there's other subjective rounds in that, so probably could have been more, but it was definitely 2.
And that's taking into account the knockdowns as well.
Yeah, 2 knockdowns, big ones as well.
I mean, guys, apart from them knockdowns, it was a while ago now. I can't really see him. Couldn't really see him moving around.
No, that's what I mean. You can't, because Deontay Wilder did nothing in any of the rounds to win them, other than the knockdown rounds, didn't he? I know they were massive, but they're only 10-8 rounds, aren't they? No matter how you look at it. So it's still, it's still only that amount of points. It's not beyond that, is it? It's not any further than that. Yeah. So it is a bit crazy, that. But then, if you look at going back to judging, then, Andy, you MC'd the shows. You've MC'd a lot of my shows. I know you've MC'd loads of shows. On the GB shows, what would you say the judging's like?
It's different, right? So I'm going to be extremely cautious here in my wording. So there are decisions that, again, as spectators, as people who like to think they know boxing, there are decisions that, to say the least, raise an eyebrow. You look at them and think, not quite sure how said judges come to that conclusion. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything untoward going on. I think at the end of the day, boxing is so subjective, and especially in amateur now, because they've gone to the pro style of scoring rounds. Before, it wasn't like that. Before, it was every time red corner lands a punch, you press the red button, and every time blue does, you press the blue button. And then there's obviously a calculator that works out who scored the most points. Yeah. But now they're in the pro style now, so now it's 10-9.
Oh, I never had how long's it been like that then, Andy? I had no idea.
3 years. 3 years.
I think it's more, Andy. I think it's probably... It must be at least 6 years, mate, that, because...
I don't think so, because when I boxed, it wasn't 10-9s. It was it was
Yeah, but
scoring
Andy, I
punches.
can't remember it. I can't remember. We moved to this gym in 2013, and it was definitely 10-9 then, mate, when we moved here. Before that, it wasn't. Before that, it was.
You're right.
You might have to get Lakey to review it.
I'd love to know the year.
Yeah.
It
Me
possibly
too.
is around that 2013 era, but
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there's pros and cons for it. I prefer the pro style of judging because at the end of the day, you know, I have seen judges who are going on for 80 years old trying to press a button as quick as they can. You've got a boxer with a combo hitting 4 or 5 punches in a row, and and I'm not being personal, but obviously they're struggling to press it 4 or 5 times consecutively, and punches get missed. And also, the problem I had with that scoring system was you could leave it very late. You could leave it late in the day as a boxer. You could think, because of how infrequent the scoring is, if I leave this to the last minute, I can undo 5 minutes of defeat. You know, I could be getting beat, not comfortably, but someone could be on top of me for 5 minutes. The last minute of the fight, I turn around and deliver 30, 40 scoring punches and it's over. And that never sat right with me either. I thought that was something they needed to address, and fortunately they have.
Yeah. I think the good thing about the 10-9 scheme is as well, it makes for exciting fights for 3 rounds, and also it helps you adapt to the pro style when you're going to be a professional fighter anyway, if it's in your
totally agree.
In your high stream. So it is probably a good thing. And the old system was good for, I don't know, it was good for clear scoring, as in clear, for clarity, but can't really think of any other benefits on the old way.
Sometimes you can get it wrong, tapping away.
I know, that's what I mean. It's not really clean,
whereas if you look at 2 guys fighting and the one what's done enough, you can say, well, give him 10 and give the one who ain't done enough 9.
Yeah,
but then if you pressing, occasionally the one doing enough, the decision can go against him because they're just pressing buttons.
And the thing is, boxing is a simple sport. It's very simple. Hit and don't be hit.
And don't be hit.
Yeah, you've got to be simple with it. You've got to simplify it for the judges. I know at the end of the day they're experts, but you have to make their job easy. And they're not idiots. They know who's won a round. You can look at a round and think, oh, the red corner has comfortably won that round. You don't need to overcomplicate things. I think that's the problem with modern sports. They try and do all these things to complicate it, but at the end of the day, you can look at a round and go, oh, he's won that 10-9. It is what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. Fantastic.
I think it is the best way, that, isn't it? I mean, if you look at our sports going, Andy, it's going on to VAR with football. It makes you think whether or not that'll progress somewhere else and all, doesn't it? Maybe it will.
I've thought about this a lot lately. I've been thinking about this and discussing this with my dad, but I think, again, I just reiterate what I've just said. The problem is you can't modify and modernize everything, and there's no need to. Sometimes you think, oh, well, if we can just tweak it and just improve it. There's lots of problems in boxing that need to be addressed before they look at anything like that. That's my opinion. And I know when you look at video assistant referees, it can really assist sports like cricket and rugby. But look at the controversy that you've had in football. I mean, I think there are certain situations where I think it would be very advantageous, and that is for disqualifications, because I get really disgruntled when I see sometimes there might be an unintentional headbutt or low blow and they're having points taken off. And for me, I think when you're taking points off people, especially in tight fights, it's all about intent. If you've like Nigel Benn, obviously that fight against McClellan he's unintentionally connected with his head.
Yeah.
Look, you can't punish him for that. He's not headbutted him, has he? He's used his momentum to throw a punch and followed through. It's just one of those things.
You get that a lot in boxing, don't you?
Of course you do.
Massive headbutting in boxing. It's just because of the nature of the sport, isn't it? You're close, aren't you?
That's right. That's right.
So it's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think the only thing I think is I don't know what you think of, but I don't know if draws in amateur boxing won't be a bad thing sometimes. I know they don't. I
think it would be a fantastic thing, but they don't do it and they never have they?
Yeah, sometimes it's not a winner, is there? Not a clear winner. So
why guys, is that? Do you know why?
I don't know.
Do draws? Do you know at all?
Yeah. So all I know is that the reason why is that there has never been they've never had draws in amateur boxing, and I believe the reason was for championships and things like that, they certainly didn't favour the idea of having, like if you had an ABA final, coming back the next week to replay, if you know what I mean, to have a rematch.
Yeah, I get that. I think could maybe then do a count back, or you could maybe go to a fifth judge or a fourth judge, something like that, an extra judge, Andy, maybe, referee, maybe.
I've heard before of like a sudden death round, like if you've had a draw, then you have an extra round. But I heard about that, and I thought it was a good idea at first, and then I thought it's probably quite dangerous actually, because you've expelled all your energy to compete over an allotted period of time, and then if suddenly you've got another 3 or 2 minute round in there, I'm not sure that would work so much. But
I would think it would work, Andy. You know why? I'll tell you why. The Pride Fighter.
Yeah, true.
Done by the Barry Hearns was the one who invented that. The Pride Fighter. They'd fight, and if they thought it was a draw, they'd fight for another round, and it seemed to do all right. It didn't seem to have any problem with it. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
It happened where they had thought it was a draw, so they'd do an extra round, and it seemed to be quite well. There never seemed to be a problem with it. They just fought for the extra round.
It make exciting TV, that, to be fair.
Definitely.
It does, as long as you can resolve it in that round. If you start having 2-3 rounds, I think it's...
it goes on a bit then, doesn't it?
It can be a bit problematic. But I mean, potentially that's a way they could modernise the sport. That would be nice. Like a penalty shootout in football. So, it's the equivalent of that, isn't it, really?
Same thing. Yeah, same thing. I mean, I always think that sometimes the referee might be better than the judges to judge the fights. A lot of the time, we have
that's interesting. Yeah.
Do
you think? I mean, I'm going to say you're saying that, Chris, in the professional game, they do that, but sometimes, Chris, I'll be honest with you. Their judging is terrible sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you agree?
I like that there's 3 judges because it gives validity to the scoring. So if you disagree with the decision, but all 3 judges have gone the same way, then you can probably accept that you were wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it gives validity to it. But also, I worry that referees sometimes are too busy. Yeah. There's a lot going on in a boxing match. I mean, first and foremost, they're worried about the safety. And then to score as well, especially tight rounds, I do think you're asking a bit much. But having said that, I've seen amateur shows where, you have to almost knock the guy out just to get a draw. Sometimes it's,
I mean, Andy, do you think that a referee's got enough to do rather than having to take a book out of his back pocket and score a fight 10-9 round?
They never score them well, do they?
Do you know what I mean? And to be quite honest, guys, we're the only country what does it that way. If you look at every other country, they have the free judging system.
Yeah, and we only do it to save money.
That's right. That's right.
It's obvious. I mean, I'm just guessing, but obviously that's the reason.
No, that's
why else?
Can I tell you what? And that's why it is.
It will be that, yeah. It will be that. Yeah. But that's why I don't see why it can't be done in amateurs, because it would save clubs money. Because then they wouldn't have to pay them extra 3 judges' expenses and all the rest of it. I'd get it in amateurs because it's only 3 rounds, but in pros, like you say, it'd be stupid to do it, wouldn't it? It's crazy.
I mean, guys, you can for a title, for area title, Midlands, Central area titles, judges are doing that. It's only been 5 minutes ago when Matt Dermott got robbed by Tyson that they changed that to
Yeah, I can remember that.
Yeah, that was just a referee judging that at one stage. You remember?
Yeah, that would get out of jail card, weren't it?
Of course, it was.
I remember that fight. It beat him in rematch, didn't it? I think he stopped him in rematch.
He stopped him in the rematch, but that first round, I love Tyson Fury, but I didn't think he won that first fight. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah.
I do agree.
He looks got a third on that, actually. A good fight, that were. It's gone to nowhere. Where's it gone him, actually, John McDermott? Where's he actually even gone?
He retired. There's an article in the Boxing News about him.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. I think he's just living a normal life. I think I read the article just after the first Wilder-Fury fight, because obviously there's so much controversy around the judging, and I think they'd got him back in touch with him to say, well, it's happened to Fury the other way around, so you got to live with it.
Yeah.
Which is true. It's, the thing is, for every dodgy decision that's gone against you, one's gone for you, I think, as well. But
yeah,
they do level out. They do level out over a season with amateurs.
They do.
You do get some, you win some, you lose some. It is how it goes, isn't it? It's just you just have to take it with a pinch of salt. Every decision you get, really.
I boxed a lad once in it was St Ives, not the one in Cornwall. It was the one. Is it Cambridge?
Cambridge, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was this lad's maybe like first or second, possibly third fight, but he wasn't very experienced. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I was never the best, but this fight I did a job on him. I think I must have won every round comfortably. But at the start of the third round, like referee says box, and I heard this massive thud. I'm looking around going, what the bloody hell's going on? There was a plank of wood landed in the ring. I looked up to the balcony and all this lad's supporters, like they'd thrown a piece of wood into the ring because obviously his lad wasn't on top. So at the end of the fight, walking back to my corner, as I say, my dad was my coach and my uncle was there. I've said, what do you think? They go, oh yeah, we've won that. No bother. And then you hear those famous words, don't you? Winner by a split decision. No. I know what's coming here. Yeah. The other lads won, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. But like you say, you take it on the chin. I was really upset at the time. I got back into the changing room, and obviously, I was chuntering away. And a coach from another club came up to me, and he just said, you won, but you're never going to win that, was you? There's going to be a riot. Like, what do you expect them to do? And they're right. It's a shame when that happens, but what could they do?
What, guys? It's something that's never going to stop. Is it in amateur or pro? Is it? They're just going to get robbed really bad decisions, and you'll hear a big uproar about it for a while, and then it will just go quiet, and everything goes back to normal. And that's what's always ever happened. And I just don't think anything will ever change, and it's very sad.
No, you can't, because it's like, in a race, you win the race, don't you? In a football match, you score more goals.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In a basketball, you get more points.
That's right.
So,
totally agree.
With boxing, there is no real, barometer, is there, to say,
knock someone out.
Unless you knock them out.
That's right.
It's like the X Factor. I always say this. It reminds me of like a singing contest because it's so subjective. It is all down to what three men think. And where they're sat and previous fights that they've watched completely dictates how they see things. So they might be at different angles. They might really not rate aggressive boxing. They might prefer boxing at distance. It is literally just subjective. Like if you was watching X Factor on a Saturday night and you don't like rock music, so he's rubbish because he's singing AC/DC. I'm not interested. That's what I mean. It's all down to personal preference with boxing.
You're 100% right. I mean, the referee could prefer a man coming forward, but even though he ain't connecting, and the other guy is picking him off, but go for the man coming forward rather than the other one who's doing all the outboxing. Sometimes it works that way. So it's all on the individual how he thinks about what he likes to see.
Yeah, I know. When you've done my shows, Andy, you've walked over to me a few times, haven't you? And you've looked at me and you shook your head and you're like, oh, for God's sake.
It's difficult. I will always defend the judges because they've got a really tough job. And I get on with a lot of them really well. So I would never like to lay into them because I couldn't do their job. It looks impossible at times. But naturally, there are decisions where you look at them and you go, I'm not sure I would have scored it that way. Yeah. And when it accumulates, when it's like 4 or 5 on a night, it's difficult not to take it personally when you're on the receiving end of it. I mean, there's been bouts before where I've almost not wanted. Well, I've not wanted to read out the result because you just know you're going to get pelters from the crowd because if the crowd have seen things how I've seen things, there's no way they're going to accept this result. Especially when it's a home lad, and that's happened before. Because normally what I try to do is coming back to X Factor again. I try and give it a razzmatazz sometimes and build up to who the winner is. A bit of a delay, but in those situations, it's just announce it straight away. Don't wind them up. Just get on with it.
Get it out there, mate. Innit? Because you're the man who they fire at, innit? Really? Because you're.
They think I've come up with the decisions. Someone chucked a pint at me once and said, "You dodger, you bent." So I was like, mate, I'm just reading a piece of paper. What do you want me to do?
Tough job, mate. Innit? Tough job.
It's funny. It's a funny job.
You're under pressure.
But it's one you enjoy, mate. It's one you do well, isn't it? I know you. I always think you do a cracking job at my shows. You do a really good job.
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
Step Box Nation shows, mate, and stuff like that. You're obviously doing something right, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it's about it's just like boxing. You know, it's how can I make myself the best I can be? And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but if you want to do things with anything, you've got to be different. And so one thing I always try and do is announce the colours. You know what shorts they've got on or whatever, because not many amateur MCs do that. So again, it's just something different. What I used to do as well is I used to read the scores out, because again, I thought, you know, it adds a bit of class to it. It's a bit like pro boxing. But actually, England boxing stopped you being able to do that about 3 years ago, which I have real problems with, because I think it helps people understand sometimes when you hear the scoring. So if you say split decision, you can hear that two judges have scored 30-28, 30-28, or whatever it is, 30-27, 30-27, and one scored it 29-28. I think that helps, because you can see, oh, well,
from
maybe...
From a point of view, Andy, first thing we go and do after decisions during the night is go to supervisors and ask them, can we see scorecards?
Yeah.
So if they're read out on the night, which they used to be, like you said, then you don't really worry about it, do you? Because you kind of know where you've gone wrong.
Of course. I think it's a very fine line when coaches do that as well. So I think it's okay to go up to the senior official in charge, as you say.
Yeah, exactly,
I've seen coaches peppering judges going, how did you score that? I don't understand. And they're concentrating on the next fight. They've got a round unfolding in front of their eyes, and there's some peeved off coach tapping them on the shoulder, demanding to see or explain how they've scored. And that always disgruntles me. And as I say, I think it's difficult for judges sometimes, especially.
That shouldn't be allowed, you know.
It shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't. I don't think it is allowed, but I've seen it.
They've got a job to do, and no one should be touching them on the shoulder or anything.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, most supervisors will, like Andy said, they'll speak to you afterwards. A supervisor will, because he hasn't got to watch the fight. But you're not meant to approach the judges, and you shouldn't really anyway, because like you said, it's a thankless job, isn't it? They can't do it right, can they?
But Chris, you'll be able to answer this better than myself. But how many times have you gone up to a senior official and they've gone, do you know, actually, I probably agree with you. I'm not sure what's happened there. I know. I bet it has happened. Yeah.
They apologise to you sometimes, and you get coaches coming over from the other club who will also apologise for the decision, because it's not. It's not the right one, so they'll definitely, agree with you as well. So,
and that's not a criticism of judges. I just like to make that clear. That just proves that boxing is subjective.
Yeah,
we can all see things that other people don't see.
That's right.
I agree totally. That's how it should be as well. And a bit of transparency helps, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Of course. On the other side of the coin, though, I do take exception when people say, as an excuse for poor officiating or whatever, and they'll say, oh, but they're only volunteers. I accept that. I do accept that. But that is also not an excuse for inadequacies, is it? Just because you're giving your time up voluntarily doesn't mean you can be poor. And to be honest, I've not come across many poor ones, but I just don't like that retort.
I'm the same, because at the end of the day, they wouldn't be doing it. It's their job, so they should be doing it right.
It's like you, Chris, isn't it? You couldn't produce poor boxer after poor boxer after poor boxer and then turn around to some parent who's just watched the lad get annihilated and go, "Well, I'm only a volunteer. I'm doing my best."
Exactly.
You've still got a duty of care, and exactly.
It's a terrible excuse, isn't it, for them to say that? Yeah.
You do get that with parents as well. Actually,
of course.
You know what I mean? So he's lost his last 4 bouts. What are we doing? We're trying. You know what I mean? We're trying. It's not always down to us, but we are trying.
You want to try that one? I'm just a volunteer, mate.
Yeah,
Fuck off.
Mate. I like to do that. I like to show them my bloody tax return, mate, and then they'll see how much money they make. So that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
Names, mate. Because honestly, they don't know, do they? Nobody knows.
I mean, I've seen all your girls, Chris, and they're all fantastic girls. Like all your girls, what I've seen. I haven't seen anybody else, but there's a few girls that I know. And
Andy's
very good.
Watched most of the girls come through, like the Hollies and the Nicholas and the Ellies, Andy, haven't you?
Yeah, they.
I have, Holly. Well,
good fighters there. Oh, very good
100%.
Yeah. Do you remember that? I think you only see the one when she fought the Irish girl. Do you remember?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do remember, mate.
And then we got
I do remember. I was MCing. Yeah. Yeah, I do remember. The tough one. See, that is like the opposite of home advantage. In that situation, it was almost as though she'd come from Ireland and it was like, oh, well, it was a 50-50 maybe, so...
Yeah, that's what it were, yeah.
There was like a way advantage in a way, that one. It was like, she's come all this way, let's give her a hand.
That annoyed the arse off me under that, because we paid for flights, I know. We paid for a hotel. It cost, that amateur fight, I kid you not, must have cost me for Ollie, because we couldn't get fights for her. So I brought an Irish champion over, and it must have cost me about £400 or £500 for that one fight, and I'm not lying.
Oh my
we lost a split decision. Ollie nearly stopped in the last 20 seconds, nearly had her out on her feet, and then we bloody lost it. Unbelievable.
That's terrible, isn't it? That's terrible when that happens, because she was some kind of Irish champion, so they brought her over so she don't lose, even though she lost. They just make it.
That's what it was like, mate.
Terrible.
We won that fight, mate. Definitely. We know we did.
But I remember that fight, and I remember literally just what I've been speaking about. I remember saying the winner of a split decision, and I remember you just like chucking a towel on the floor because you knew what was coming.
I did know.
When you hear those words, when you've won comfortably and you hear split decision, you think, oh no,
going one way,
I know what's coming now.
Yeah, it's going one way, mate, but not your way. Trust me, that's one of them, mate. That is 100%. So, what do we think about this weekend's fights, then, boys? With Zelfa Barrett. What do we think about Zelfa Barrett versus Kiko Martinez?
I didn't even realise he was fighting Kiko Martinez. I've just got my boxing news in today, and I've seen him on the inside of it. Is he fighting Kiko Martinez?
Kiko Martinez, mate. It's a good fight, isn't it?
It's a good fight, but you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say it's a good name, but it's probably tough.
Yeah, probably 2 years, isn't it? 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe. He's been inactive and all, hasn't he?
It's a good name, isn't it? Good fight for him.
I do rate Kiko, though.
Yeah.
Got a funny feeling about this fight, guys.
Have you?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe one of those dodgy judging decisions we've been talking about.
Would be, mate. I mean, he's fought everybody, hasn't he? Kiko Martinez, he fought Warrington, Frampton, everyone. And give him tough fights.
He didn't he? Do you remember a fighter not far from your way, Jason Booth?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, Jason Too Smooth.
Too Smooth, lovely guy. Very good fighter. I think he fought him, but he stopped him. But Jason was probably his best.
I do remember it.
Jason was just probably past his best then, like, you know.
Yeah, but it was a good fight though.
Very good
fight. I think, like what Andy's saying, it could well be. It could be a tough one. That could be a tough night.
One you reckon he might lose? Like
could be, but I do know. But Zelfa Barrett can punch, can't he?
Of course he can.
He's got a good coaches and all, Anthony and Pat.
He's got a good coach. Pat is a relative. It's his uncle, isn't
it? It's his uncle.
He was a class fighter back in the day when
Pat was Black Flash, weren't he?
Black Flash. Black Flash. British.
Another strong fighter.
Very good. Very, very good.
Yeah, so he's got a good team in his corner, so he should come through, but it'll be a tough one.
Yes. Be a tough fight. Be a very, very tough fight.
Martinez won the European belt a few times.
He won the European a few times, and he won world champion as well.
Yeah, he was world champion.
IBF.
Yeah, he was IBF world champion for a while there, wasn't he?
Yeah. So,
good pedigree, mate. Always comes to fight. It'll be an entertaining fight, that.
Like you say, I can see Zelfa winning, but it won't be very easy with it, you know, because that guy is one tough cookie. He can bang again.
Fights are, isn't it?
That's right.
You've got to get past him to get to the next level, haven't you?
You know, he's expected to win, but anything can happen, can't it? But I'm sure he should go through, but you never know.
He's got height in him and all, and Zelfa's quite tall, isn't he?
Yeah, very tall fighter.
So he should go that big left hook, shouldn't he, when he comes in. So I'd imagine Zelfa should stop him, but tight fight. What about Reece Mould, Lee Wood? That's a good fight.
Oh yeah.
I'm going Reece Mould on this.
Looking
forward.
How's he going to win then? How's he going to win, Chris?
I think Reece Mould could stop him.
I mean, he could.
Lee Wood's good as well. Lee Wood's good as well. Both good fighters, but this is a 50-50. And I just think that conditioning-wise, I think Reece Mold's above Lee Wood condition-wise. Both good fighters. Lee Wood's got the skills, ex-singles fighter. I mean, he's been with some good coaches, hasn't he? So, he's got the know-how, hasn't he? But, I don't know. He's been found out, hasn't he, Lee Wood?
Good 50-50 fight, eh?
Yeah, I think this will go the distance.
It probably could. It probably could, Andy. Yeah, I probably agree. So what you saying? You saying Lee Wood points?
I think so. Yeah, I think maybe
he's their own fighter as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's always difficult with the scoring because sometimes it can look more comfortable than it is. I think he probably wins by about 3 or 4 rounds, but I do think it's a very tight fight. Very tight. I just think he sneaks a couple.
Yeah, I do like Reece Mold. There's something about him.
I do agree.
Very fit. He can punch a bit with that right hand. So
he can bang. He can bang. Yeah. There's no two ways about it. Yeah.
I mean, mate. What about the top of the bill then? So we've got Lara versus Warrington. What I want to ask you is, why has Warrington vacated? I don't like champions vacating belts. No. My opinion. What about you, Arf?
I think it was a very close fight, and he probably thought, "Oh, I've beat him already, and I don't want to go over all ground again. I want to fight another champion." Because what he wanted to do, he wanted to unify the belts, didn't he?
Yeah.
And the guy he was fighting, didn't he have a belt? Even he was meant to have a world title, but they're not fighting for the world title now, are they? It's just a fight. And I think what was going to happen was he'd relinquish that belt, let Barry fight and probably win the IBF belt, and he would have won that belt. Then they could have another match together and make more money. I think that's the idea of that one. That's what I thought. I don't know.
Galahad mandatory. Galahad, that was a close fight. I thought Galahad nicked that.
Yeah, it was close. Yeah,
it was close.
I did actually. Yeah, I thought he nicked it. Yeah. How long has Lara been inactive then?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, about a year or two.
Might be a year, 18 months. I'm not too sure.
This is the problem I have. This is the problem I have. Being inactive for so long. I mean, I've never seen he was in the best shape, but the picture I saw this morning, he didn't look in the greatest of nick either. And he's coming in to fight someone of Warrington's calibre.
Warrington is always super fit, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I can only see this going one way. Famous last words, I know, but I mean, seriously, this potentially is what is wrong with boxing. And you could have it could end up being a nothing fight in the end. It could be over quickly, or it could just be a whitewash.
You know what, Andy? I think it will be over quickly, my friend. You know, that guy, he just keeps coming, doesn't he?
Yeah, Warrington's strong. Yeah. I mean, Warrington really had cramped in that, didn't it?
Sorry, guys, I've just Googled Lara for you, Maurizio Lara. Yeah. He actually had 4 fights in 2020.
Did he really?
Yeah, 1st of February, 4th of July, 21st of August, and the 4th of December.
Who did he fight, like?
Alexandre Palmeiro. He fought him in February 20, won that by knockout, then rematched him in July, and it was a no contest. Then he fought a guy called Jesus Hujarda, and he won that one by KO. Then Sergio Puente in December, and he won that by unanimous decision. But, I mean, combined losses for those guys is 10-16.
22. Do you know, I was sure he was inactive. I really thought I'd read somewhere that he'd not boxed for a few years.
No, 4 fights in 2020.
I thought I saw it the other day. Well, I thought I saw it in the boxing news the other day.
Yeah.
I never thought that. You know what I mean? I mean, I picked it up yesterday, and I was reading about that. You know,
that could be a good fight then. Has he fought anybody with big names then, like?
Has he what, mate?
Has he fought any big names then, Lara?
I'm just having a little scan through. Doesn't look like he's ever even fought for any form of title, to be honest with you. Not even like one of the WBC, made up title out kind of Mexican.
They were meant to be fighting for the WBA, weren't they? Him and Warrington, were they not?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's only ever fought 4 fighters with an unbeaten record, and that was way back.
How did he do with them?
He won those. The only one he's ever lost. He's got how many losses has he got?
He's lost two losses.
Two losses. He lost to a guy called Elliot Chavez, who was 5-1, and he lost his debut against Julio Carabino, who was 2-2.
Yeah, so
his last loss was 2018. His last loss was 2018. And then he had the no contest against this Alejandro Palmero on 4th of July last year.
Yeah, I've just pulled that up as well. I'm genuinely surprised. I need to look at the sources I'm taking my news from.
I think you do, mate. I think that could be quite tricky then, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Heard it here first on Boyle Talks Boxing. Eh?
I wonder how many people listening also thought he was inactive. Slagging him off. Oh, he's a joke.
Yeah, there you go.
He's had 4 fights in a year, man. Yeah. More than I ever had.
Exactly.
I still think
Warrington will walk through him.
Yeah,
I do, mate. I do.
I said to his trainer, he's one of his trainers, Nick Mann, I said, how come he hasn't stopped so many? And he's such a force to watch him in practical circumstances. He look like he can bang, but he hasn't stopped that many. But I don't know.
He's only, I think he's only stopped 7, hasn't he?
Yeah, but when you see him, I mean, when he fought the Irish fella said, "Oh, he could eat."
He nearly had him out. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think he started getting stoppages in his last few fights off as well. Yeah. So it's like he's building power, and it's like he's growing into power.
Yeah, 100%.
So maybe his power's coming late. It could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Maybe his dad's training him as well. Into his dad's good training. Sean. Yeah. So maybe Sean's seen some making him sit down in his punches a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Doing better with it, isn't it? Hopefully, I do like Josh Warrington. I just thought it was a shame he vacated. I would have liked to see that second fight with Kid Galahad. You know what I mean? I know not everybody does, but if you're boxing purist, it was a decent fight.
Maybe, Chris, they may fight again with a belt each on the line.
Yeah, they might have to,
if Barry, if Kid Galahad comes through against
it's Jazzy Dickens, isn't it?
Jazzy Dickens, if he comes through this time, So I know we beat him last time, but it doesn't mean to say you'll beat him this time. We just don't know, do we? I mean, that Jazzy is.
What's interesting, we're talking about obviously Lara, but it's actually Warrington. Warrington had his last fight, 12th of October 2019.
Mad.
Oh,
mad.
I didn't know.
So he's been inactive out of the two.
I knew that he'd not boxed for over a year. I did know that, but I think, again, it's a bit lazy assumption, but you almost forgive it with Warrington because you know it doesn't matter. He's that fit.
Yeah, he is fit.
That translates to nothing on the night. It's not like other boxers where if they've got a year of inactivity, you think this might be costly. I could probably think that about Tyson Fury, actually. Look at how long he's been inactive now. A year. Yeah. Inactive is maybe not the right term, but because he's obviously training hard. But you look at the fact he's not boxed in a year now, and you think, not sure.
It's starting to go on that. When you look at Joshua fought Pulev not long ago, didn't it?
Yeah,
it's quite interesting actually, isn't it? You never know, inactivity suits some, but not many. That's what they say, don't they? So, not everybody, is it?
I think my point was with Warrington, I probably wouldn't read into it too much because I don't think it matters on the. I mean, it might do.
But, might find out.
Yeah.
But I'm like you, mate. I still think what Arv says. Warrington will come through that fight.
Yeah.
I think it just pressurise.
That's what he does to Liam. That's why I said I'm surprised he hasn't had as much stoppage. He's only had that amount of stoppage because
it's 7 out of 30. Yeah.
Like a machine.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. You think you'd have into double figures, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But I think, like I said, his last few have been stoppages, so maybe he's getting that way now.
Yeah.
I think though, I think that probably says more about the people he's fought than it does about him. The fact that he's never really shirked a challenge. He's always had high caliber opponents.
Yes.
I think that's what that says. It says more about who he's been willing to fight than it does about his own abilities, if that makes sense.
You know what, Andy? I would say you're right. You know what I mean? He's never fought, he's always fought hard, tough men and not so many ones, what hard, he's never had no easy fights in his career. They've always been hard fights, and maybe that's why.
Well, he's fought Frampton, Selby, Warrington, Frampton,
Selby, all hard men.
Martinez. He's fought all
hard
them.
Men, yeah. They're all hard men.
So they're good opponents, aren't they? They are. So, and Kid Galahad, obviously, which is another good one. He's fought good lads, hasn't he? What's the future for you then, Andy? Now, mate, what's coming up for you before we finish?
Well, it's all dependent on whether we can get some shows in, isn't it? I've had a few, I won't say official offers, but there's some televised events lined up that I'm considering. It's a bit off topic, but I see, you probably know him, Nathan DeCastro's now gone over to Bare Knuckle Boxing.
Yeah, we had him on the show last week.
Yeah, we had him on.
I'm watching that.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
Yeah,
good.
I'm watching that very closely.
Yeah,
so who knows? Maybe a little bit down the line, might get involved in that. But yeah, I think it's difficult because I'm not at the elite level of MC, and if such a thing exists, where obviously I'm not doing title fights every week. So this pandemic has been awful for me. Really, I've not stepped foot in a boxing ring since February of last year. So. I'm the inactive one, not Lara. It's me that's inactive.
Yeah, all the amateurs though.
That was our show, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the last one I did was yours, Chris.
February 13th, mate. It was.
Yeah.
Day before Valentine's.
Yeah, I remember. My missus was really happy with me about that one.
Guys, tell me something. You got any idea when the amateurs will be back on? Probably not this year either. You think?
I think it might be this year. I think it might be this year. The problem you've got with amateur is it is solely dependent on people coming through the door. It is completely a spectator sport because clubs use these shows to fund the year. They have three. Of course, it does. They have 3-4 shows a year. Use the ticket money to buy equipment, to pay rent, and do whatever. Once you start taking that away from them, it becomes impossible to run a club when especially if you still being charged rent. I don't know what your situation is, Chris, but
no, I pay full rent all the way through, mate. I have no chance in rent.
And
I support my old amateur club, and it's the same. They used to have 3 or 4 or 5 amateur shows a year, and now all of a sudden nothing left here.
We get 3 or 4 and a half every year.
My point was, I don't know that it's something you could really do behind closed doors, although it'd probably be good for the boxers. If you're paying, mileage money to other clubs without having any ticket money to offset that against, I don't see how it's possible. Even if you got permission to do it, it's just not viable.
It's just not viable with expenses. Even you still have to have doctors. You still got to pay £200 for your doctor and all the rest of it, haven't you? You know what I mean?
You 100%. It wouldn't work, would it? I mean, if it did work, the all shows would continue, and they're in the same boat as the amateur shows. So
I don't think, like you just said, that's a good point. That until we see small all shows back, we're not going to see amateur back. I just don't see it.
No.
So it'd be interesting. I know the GB boxers are boxing now, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're boxing in Hungary, aren't they?
That's right.
But that's a positive step, I suppose. But they're elite athletes, aren't they? So
yeah, I mean, Chris and Andy, there's even a few amateurs, they thought, so decent, they've gone pro. So
loads and loads are still continuing to do that as well.
Yeah,
and that will keep happening.
Yeah,
but some just want to fight there.
Yeah, of course it will. I think I was going to say that I've heard people suggest, well, why couldn't they actually film these amateur events and maybe, do some kind of stream and charge people? The biggest problem with that is that if you go to a boxing event, let's say I go with my partner and my children, I'm buying 5 tickets there. And if it's £10 a ticket, that's £50 the club are getting. If I'm at home and I'm going to watch that, I'm only going to buy 1 ticket because and you can't charge £50 to watch amateur boxing. That's just insane. So you're going to charge somewhere in the region of £10 to £20.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a massive hit to the club. Not to mention how much is it going to cost to stream such a thing if you were able to.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think that is financially viable either.
No.
And I think it's just got to wait.
Yeah. I think it's a really lazy comment sometimes when people say that, we'll just stream it. It's like, how are we going to make money then?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for the streaming service, isn't it? Because that's going to come at a cost, isn't it? Yeah. You can't just do everything for nothing. I think earliest it'll be September, if we're lucky. Maybe. If we're lucky. But we'll see.
Oh, that's pretty fabulous. Well, thanks very much, guys. and it's a wonderful chatting to you. So you've been listening to Boyle Talks Boxing with Mr. R of Me Too, our head host, Mr. Chris Boyle, and myself, Lakey, alongside our very special guest, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Andy Barraclough. So thanks for joining us, Andy, and giving us your insight. And I look forward to seeing if all of you guys' predictions for Martinez v Barrett and Warrington v Lara, be good to see if they all come to fruition. So thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, guys.
You guys.